I live in Illinois and I've lived here most of my life. I love it here. It's got that Midwestern charm, lovely people, great schools, a beautiful Lake Michigan, and incredible downtown Chicago. And tons of things to do in and around the Chicagoland area. I've felt this for quite some time, but now more than ever, I strongly feel that Illinois is cooked, financially speaking. But what do I mean by this? Well, the state's budget is out of control. Spending is through the roof, and taxpayers, well, they're footing the bill for everything with no end in sight. But the real kicker, there's only one way out of this mess. Cut spending or increase taxes even more. And neither option is going to be pretty. I hate the thought of moving out of the state, but if things continue on the path they're headed, there may be no other choice. In this video, we're diving into the financial crisis Illinois finds itself in. Stay with me as we break it all down. Illinois is burning through cash like there's no tomorrow. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at these latest budget numbers. According to the Illinois Policy Institute, Governor J.B. Pritzker's record $55.2 billion Illinois state budget for fiscal year 2026 relies on more than $1.55 billion in boosted revenue estimates to cover the cost. But state reports suggest the reality could be less rosy and leaving taxpayers covering the difference. Looking at Illinois' proposed 2026 budget through the lens of fiscal responsibility, there are some serious concerns about how sustainable all of this spending really is. On paper, it looks promising. Big investments in education, healthcare, and social services, plus efforts to strengthen their emergency rainy day fund and pay down debts. But can the state actually afford it in the long run? Now, if the economy takes a downturn, keeping up with this level of spending could become a serious challenge. Then there's the elephant in the room: pension liabilities. Illinois already has one of the most underfunded pension systems in the country. The budget does include extra payments above the required minimum, and with a new goal to reach full funding by 2048. That sounds great and a step in the right direction, but pensions still eat a huge chunk of the state's budget, and these long-term financial risks threaten Illinois' future fiscal stability. Another thing to keep in mind is how much this budget depends on a stable economy. It's based on optimistic revenue projections, assuming steady growth with no major disruptions. But what if federal policies shift? What if federal spending gets cut? What if tariffs start affecting Illinois businesses? What if we hit an economic rough patch? Any of these could throw a wrench in the state's revenue stream, throwing their budget off balance. Healthcare and social services are also getting a big funding boost, particularly Medicaid. There's no denying these programs help people, but they come with ever-growing costs, and with federal COVID-era funding winding down, where's the extra money going to come from? Without a surge in revenues, Illinois faces tough choices that could involve cutting critical services or imposing even more financial burdens on its residents. Infrastructure spending is another major focus. Their capital improvements plan and other big-ticket infrastructure projects aim at boosting the economy. Now, investing in infrastructure is smart if managed well, but large-scale projects are notorious for cost overruns, and if they don't deliver, taxpayers could be left footing the bill. Debt management is another mixed bag. On the bright side, Illinois is refinancing some of its debt to lower interest rates and paying down high-interest debt. However, the overall debt levels are staggering. And then there's the reliance on federal funding. A big part of this budget assumes continued financial support from Washington, but that's never a sure thing, especially with what's going on with our current administration, specifically Elon Musk and the new Department of Government Efficiency. What if the political winds shift and this federal support evaporates? Illinois could be left scrambling, forced to make drastic decisions that could involve severe cutbacks or increased taxes. At the end of the day, the budget looks ambitious, even responsible in some areas. But when you crunch the numbers, it's quite possible that Illinois might be spending money it doesn't actually have. The state is counting on best case scenarios, strong economic growth, steady federal aid, and rising revenues. But what happens if things don't go as planned? I want to hear from you. What's the most critical step Illinois should take right now to solve its financial challenges? Let me know in the comments below. Illinois ranks as the third highest state for population loss, trailing only behind California and New York, with a staggering departure of over 56,000 residents. This exodus places Illinois at 48th in the nation for retention, as more people choose to relocate than in almost any other state. What's the reason? High taxes. According to polling from NPR and the University of Illinois, a significant 61% of Illinois residents considered moving out in 2019, citing taxes as their top concern. It's probably even higher today. However, taxes aren't the only issue. Surveys targeting those who've already left the state reveal that many are seeking better housing and employment opportunities elsewhere. Let's talk about what this really means for you. Illinois is already one of the most heavily taxed states in the country, and yet the state government keeps spending like there's a never-ending supply of money. But here's the reality. There isn't. And guess who's constantly being asked to make up the difference? Taxpayers like us. Think about it. Property taxes in Illinois are among the highest in the nation, making homeownership more expensive year after year. Income taxes for individuals are around 5%, and sales taxes among the highest in the country at over 10% where I live, meaning you're paying more every time you buy everyday essentials. Despite these high taxes, Illinois continues to face financial challenges. Eventually, Illinois will have to face a tough choice. Either cut spending or raise taxes even more. And let's be honest, when has Illinois ever been known for cutting spending? Exactly. Instead of tightening the budget, the state's usual approach is to find more ways to bring in revenue, which often means taxing everyday people like you and me. One idea being floated is increasing taxes on the wealthy using something like a progressive tax. Now, on the surface, it sounds like a good idea. Make high earners pay more, and the problem is solved, right? But there's a catch. Wealthy individuals and business owners have the means to move elsewhere if taxes get too high. And when they leave, Illinois doesn't just lose those taxpayers, it loses their contributions to the state's revenue fund. That means less money coming in, which puts even more pressure on middle class and lower income residents to fill the gap. So where does that leave the average taxpayer? They're stuck in an endless cycle. The cost of living keeps rising, taxes keep increasing, and yet the government keeps spending beyond its means. If history has taught us anything, it's that when the state needs more money, it doesn't cut back, it turns to the people. And that means your tax burden is likely to get even heavier in the years to come. I mean, what's the solution here? Does Illinois need someone like Elon Musk to come in to shrink government payrolls, analyze the finances for financial waste and abuse? I don't know, but let me know what you think in the comments. What I do know is that Illinois stands at a crossroads. Keep heading down the same path of spending and raising taxes, or make a sharp turn towards smarter money management. Illinois' pension system has been a financial challenge for years, and despite efforts to fix it, the problem isn't going away anytime soon. Even with extra contributions beyond the required minimum, the state's pension debt remains enormous, one of the worst in the country. The current plan is to raise the pension-funded ratio goal from 90% to 100% by the year 2048. It sounds good in theory, but let's be real. That's 24 years from now. And even with the extended timeline, pensions are still eating up a massive chunk of the budget every single year. So what's really happening? Illinois made promises it couldn't afford to keep. Now, instead of addressing the root cause of the issue, the state is trying to patch things up while pensions continue to drain billions from the budget. And here's the catch. Every dollar spent on pensions is a dollar that's not going towards schools, roads, healthcare, or economic growth. It's an endless cycle, and unless drastic changes are made, it's only going to get worse. The crisis isn't just an economic issue, it's a moral one. Illinois must confront this challenge head-on, not with temporary fixes or distant targets, but with real, substantial reform. One of the biggest reasons Illinois has managed to keep its head above water is federal funding, especially the money that poured in during the pandemic. But that temporary lifeline is disappearing. And the state's budget is still banking on federal aid to keep things running smoothly. What happens if that money doesn't come through? Simple. The state will scramble to find new revenue sources. And in Illinois, new revenue sources almost always mean one thing: higher taxes. This is a dangerous game. Illinois is relying on best case scenarios, that the economy will stay strong, that the federal government will keep bailing it out, and that taxpayers will just accept whatever comes next. But history tells us this is a risky bet, and if it doesn't pay off, Illinois will be in even deeper financial trouble. With Governor Pritzker sharply critical of President Trump, anything can happen here. Illinois must break the cycle of dependency and forge a path towards true fiscal independence. This means making tough decisions, realigning budget priorities, and investing in sustainable growth. So what's the way out of this mess? Maybe we need a progressive tax where high-income earners are taxed more. Perhaps retirement benefits for high-income retirees should also be taxed, as they're currently not taxable. The state needs to stop spending like there's an unlimited supply of cash. Every year the budget grows, new programs get added, and yet somehow Illinois is still drowning in debt. Instead of throwing money at every issue, lawmakers need to make some tough decisions and focus on what truly matters. If families and businesses have to budget and live within their means, why shouldn't the state? But this won't happen unless the people in charge are actually held accountable. Politicians make big promises, but where does the money really go? Illinois taxpayers deserve better. They deserve leaders who prioritize financial stability over political games, and most importantly, they deserve real solutions, not excuses. It's not enough to keep turning to taxpayers whenever there's a shortfall. Illinois needs to innovate its approach to revenue, exploring new economic sectors and technologies that can broaden the tax base without placing additional burden on its citizens. The pension crisis is a ticking time bomb. Comprehensive pension reform is crucial. This involves not only adjusting benefits and contributions, but also exploring new funding mechanisms that can sustain these systems without overwhelming the state budget. Here's the bottom line. Illinois can either keep pretending everything's fine or face reality and start fixing the problems, because if nothing changes, the ones paying the price won't be the politicians. It'll be everyday people like you and me, and eventually, our children. But you have the power to drive change. Stay informed about how your tax dollars are being spent. Demand transparency and accountability from your elected officials. Remember, they work for you, not the other way around. Also, engage in the political process. Vote not just with your heart or your party affiliation, but with a clear eye towards policies that will truly stabilize and grow our economy. Now, if this video got you thinking about this challenging economy we're facing, then you'll want to watch this video next up here, where stock market expert Peter Grandage shares his shocking market crash prediction, which may be unfolding as we speak.